Hey y'all, it's Mary Hyatt, and I am so excited you are here for this month's topic, which is all about mindfulness. 95% of our thoughts and emotional responses and reactions are unconscious, on autopilot. We live most of our days recreating and reenacting the same day, the same life over and over again. This month, we are going to explore the power of mindfulness and how awareness is the gateway to all change and transformation in your life. If you have been feeling stuck in any area, this foundational month is going to be for you. So let's hop into it.
Welcome to the Living Fully Alive podcast with Mary Hyatt, here to help you find your authentic voice, learn how to love yourself, and embrace your life. And now, your host, life and mindset coach, body love advocate, and doTERRA Presidential Diamond, Mary Hyatt.
Hey y'all, it is Mary Hyatt, and I am so excited that we are beginning this journey into more mindfulness this month. And I am fresh off the boat, I guess, or off the airplane from a beautiful 6-day advanced retreat with Dr. Joe Dispenza. If you're familiar with him, he is kind of the leading expert on this idea of the mind-body connection and really gets into the science of it, gets into brain chemistry and neurology, and I mean, you name it, epigenetics, and spent 6 days kind of with a beautiful group of people exploring how powerful we are as beings to create our future and what that looks like in practice. So I feel like this month's topic of mindfulness is so perfectly aligned with all the work that I've been really diving into. Now, I've been interested in mindfulness for probably about 15 years or so, and through using this tool have had just unbelievable life transformation after life transformation after life transformation inside of my own journey through self-development and self-awareness. And it's something that I use with my clients. It's something that I talk about in the membership that I have. And we really, in all areas, get to foundationally come back to something that I feel like is so powerful, might be the most powerful tool we have to create change in our lives. And so I'm going to kind of bring in some wisdom that I learned from being with Dr. Joe Dispenza and all the meditative work that we did together. And then also just experiences from my own life kind of mixed in here today with really getting into the basics of mindfulness, because this word can be thrown out a lot. And I want to make sure that we are all on the same page as we get into the rest of this month and I bring on the guests. I want to make sure that we have a foundation of mindfulness. And for me, I lived so long, sort of what I like to call sleepwalking, where I was checked out, I was numbing out, I was not conscious. And everything in my life was a reaction to my external environment. So if something came across my path, I just responded in predictable ways. I just had my unconscious way of being, my habits, my patterns, my states of being, my emotional states of being. And I never had the awareness that I could change any of those things. Like it felt like truth. It felt like objective kind of circumstances, facts that I had no control over. And so through my journey, I think one of the first books that I read was by Louise Hay. And I started to understand that, oh my gosh, I have creative agency over my life. I have a say so in how my life goes, that I have this beautiful free will and responsibility to become a creative agent in my future. And I started really studying and diving into all of this work of the mind-body connection. And everything came back to the same starting point, which was awareness. Now, as you guys know, the name of this podcast is the Living Fully Alive podcast. And I have a whole graph or a wheel of what it looks like to create a sense of aliveness in your life. So when I work with my one-on-one coaching clients, we get into this, and there's certain stages. There's 5 stages of becoming fully alive. And the first is awareness. And so that to me is a synonym for mindfulness, is awareness. And we cannot create any profound change in our life, whether that is a new job, a new relationship, more money, deeper fulfillment, more intimacy, without first becoming aware of the thoughts that got us to where we are currently in a state of being stuck or wanting more or feeling unfulfilled. Our thoughts got us to that place. So the first step is becoming aware of what is happening between our ears and have that moment of becoming awake, where we move from unconscious to conscious. So let's kind of slow down and define mindfulness. And I love that there are so many different experts and teachers and gurus that are teaching this concept of mindfulness in all different special ways. And I love kind of getting into the nuances of it. And ultimately, I hope that you can find a teacher that you really resonate with. For me, it has been Tara Brach. It has been Dr. Joe Dispenza, just to name a couple that have just really clicked with me. Louise Hay is one, Brene Brown, Robert Holden. So I hope that you kind of have already some of those people that you're drawn to. So mindfulness is a mental state achieved by focusing one's awareness on the present moment, while calmly, and I want to emphasize the word calmly, acknowledging it and accepting one's feelings, thoughts, and bodily sensations, used as a therapeutic technique. So this is different than positive thinking, because in positive thinking, there's not a lot of space for challenge, for grief, for anger, for sadness, for shame. It's sort of like, no, don't even give that any attention. But to me, the human condition means we have this polarity in our emotional states. We have these negative or positive or good or bad, and I wouldn't even probably qualify them that way, but we have a range of emotional states. And so with mindfulness, it's just observing. It's like bringing awareness to how we're feeling in the moment without judgment, calmly acknowledging and accepting who we are, where we are in this given moment. And mindfulness is a type of meditation in which you focus on being intensely aware of what you're sensing and feeling in the moment without interpretation, without trying to fix or change or cultivate a different experience, and without judgment, without attaching criticism to it. And practicing mindfulness can include a lot of different things, including breathing techniques, guided imagery, and other practices to help relax the body and help to ultimately reduce some of that stress. And so the mental state of being aware of your feelings and accepting experiences is that state of being awake, of being mindful. And it can be used for so many different issues, like whether it is anxiety, whether that is depression, whether that is burnout or overwhelm, when we're sort of stuck in that hamster wheel of ruminating on emotions and we don't really know what's going on, and yet we just feel miserable. We just feel stuck. Mindfulness is taking our focus off of the external world and bringing it inside and focusing on the internal. And if you've done any of this work, whether it's been for like a week or many, many, many years, you know that everything that is in our external is a reflection of what's on the internal. And the internal state of being, when we can bring our mind to start focusing on that, that is the gateway for transformation, for change, for all the things that we want: abundance, happiness, joy, peace, safety, security, all of that. First starts by a thought and then an emotion. It begins by our thinking. And 95% of our thoughts, get this is so crazy, 95% of our thoughts are unconscious. They're habitual. They're like a computer program running on autopilot that we're not even conscious or aware of. They're unconscious. They're subconscious. They're below the conscious mind. And so the challenge with that is if 95% of us is running a program, checked out, like we're not, deciding how we want to start our day, move through our day. We're not thinking about our future. We're not designing our future. We're not kind of slowing down to be in the present moment to decide how we want to react when hard things happen or challenging things come about. And we're just on autopilot. We're just, boom, reacting. All of a sudden, we have given our power away to the program, to our past, the ways that we've learned to be habitually over time, over and over and over again. And from that place, you can't create gratefulness. You can't create greatness. You can't create abundance because you're in survival. You're just in that fight, flight, or flee response. And so mindfulness gives you that power to decide something new, to choose a new thought, to choose a new emotion, to choose a new way of being, a new future. And mindfulness is the tool that we can use to begin to shift our life. So I really like this definition from Jon Kabat-Zinn, who is an American professor, emeritus of medicine and the creator of the Stress Reduction Clinic and the Center of Mindfulness in Medicine, Healthcare and Society at the University of Massachusetts Medical School. I mean, how cool is that guy? Hello, John. So he says mindfulness is paying attention on purpose in the present moment and non-judgmentally as if your life depended upon it. I'm going to read that again. Mindfulness is paying attention on purpose in the present moment and non-judgmentally as if your life depended upon it. So if you think about that all of a sudden opens up the ability to be higher than the program, to be stronger than the autopilot, to be able to have some free will, to be able to assert our creative agency on our life rather than being a victim to how it's been in the past, the things that we've learned in the past, our old limiting beliefs, our limited view of reality, and our limited potential. And it opens us up to unlimited potential. It opens us up to creating something different, something new for ourselves. So mindfulness, just to kind of give you a little history, is Eastern in its origin. It's originally a Buddhist term. And now we have the science to back up this process of mindfulness by looking at the brain waves, neural pathways, and the nervous system response. And I'll explain a little bit more about this in a minute, but this is what I love about the fact that we have science now, that we can look at these things that are historically mystical and mysterious, like the power of prayer, the power of meditation, and the power of thought. And now we can see through brainwave scans, through heart monitoring waves, we can see that scientifically the brain changes depending on how we're thinking, the state that we're being in. Our heart rhythm changes. The coherence in our brain and our heart begins to shift into incoherence depending on our thoughts, or coming back into coherence. And Thich Nhat Hanh, a Vietnamese Buddhist monk, teacher, author, poet, peace activist. I hope you have heard of him. I hope you've read some of his work. It's fascinating and brilliant. He is kind of the one responsible for bringing attention to mindfulness to the Westerners. And his definition of mindfulness is the energy of attention. It is the capacity in each of us to be present 100% to what is happening within and around us. It is the miracle. I love that language. It's the miracle that allows us to become fully alive in each moment. It is the essential basis for healing and transforming ourselves and creating more harmony in our family, in our work life, and in our society. gosh, the miracle that allows us to become fully alive. I'm like, yes, like that is my jam. That is why this whole podcast is called the Living Fully Alive podcast. That's why I have my membership, the Fully Alive membership. This is the miracle that allows us to do this. Without mindfulness, we get stuck in programs and patterns and habitual ways of responding that are steeped in victimhood, that are steeped in reacting, that are steeped in old memories of trauma, of challenging experiences, of a limiting identity. And then we show up in that state and we keep repeating the past over and over and over and over and over and over again. And maybe you've been at this place in your life where you go, oh my gosh, I've been making the same amount of money for the past 10 years. Or I've been in the same abusive relationship for the past 5 years. Or my health has been struggling for the past 20 years. And we get stuck in these patterns and we're like, okay, how do I break free? How do I break through to the other side of vitality and abundance and true connection and oneness? And it's through this practice and tool of mindfulness. And it really is that first step of living fully alive. It's this awareness. It's bringing our attention wholly to the present moment. Our power is in the present moment. And truly, the biggest gift that we can give anyone in our lives is our own self-realization. Because we all know the people, ourselves included, who go through their day just checked out. They're just responding to stimuli. They're reactive. They're short. They cut people off in traffic. They feel like everyone is against them. They see the world as a fearful place. They see everything is happening to them. And they're a victim of their mind, unfortunately. And yet there's another way. And that's what I get excited about. So I want to talk about how we can become greater than our memorized emotions, greater than the program, and really learn how to control our internal environment. So I want to give you 5 elements of mindfulness and really kind of get into the methodology of this. So the first element of mindfulness is like what I've already been talking about, paying attention. We're sort of turning on the light bulb in our brain from being asleep to whoop, now we're awake. Now we're noticing. And we're taking this definition that John Kabat-Zinn, the professor at the Massachusetts Medical School, we're taking his definition. I'm going to break it down. So the first is paying attention. We are listening to, watching. We're considering what naturally exists in any given moment without denying it, without avoiding it, without trying to alter it. That is true acceptance. It's like in any given moment, I can tenderly look on what's here and pay attention to what's happening in my physical body, my thoughts, my feelings, my emotions, my sensations, my memories, even my beliefs. I'm bringing attention to the conversation, to the narrative that is happening inside of my brain and consequently inside of my body. And we know there is such a powerful mind-body connection that, for example, this first part of paying attention could be the fact that I notice that my heart is beating really fast. That might be my entry point of my awareness. Whoa. Or I'm sweating. Or I'm kind of feeling sick to my stomach. That could be the invitation of, wait a second, what's going on here? And then all of a sudden we realize that we've been stuck in a cycle of stress thinking. Stinking thinking, as my mom would say. And we've been in a story, in a narrative, playing out worst case scenarios, playing out fearful things ahead of time in the future. And our body physiologically begins to experience the repercussions of those thoughts. We begin to feel panicky. We begin to feel fearful. And again, we're just becoming conscious. We're just creating awareness to this, right? So we're not avoiding, we're not denying, we're not altering it. We're not trying to change it. We're not trying to fix it. We're not trying to wish it away or positive think it away. We're bringing attention. It's like, what is asking for the highest attention right now? And you might even choose to ask yourself like that right now. What is asking for my highest attention right now? That's a Tara Brach question that I just love and always come back to. It may be a really strong emotion. It may be a really strong thought, maybe a really strong sensation in the body. What is asking for my highest attention right now? So that's the first element, paying attention. The second element of mindfulness is on purpose. I love this. We are turning off that program, that autopilot, and we're very intentionally really increasing our awareness of our experience and to, on purpose, kind of begin to see beyond just that fear thinking, beyond that survival mode, and we tune into potential. So we're on purpose really bringing that awareness to see, where am I limited here? Can we bring this unconscious material into the light of day? Can we shine a light on it on purpose and become the observer, to become the one who is observing what's happening in our body and our mind and our emotions on purpose? We're bringing intention to this. And this is where it becomes a practice. It's not just that we find ourselves happening to be more aware. No, we're doing it on purpose. We're cultivating it. We're doing this regularly. This becomes a part of our being, our life, our waking life is on purpose, being intentional about what's going on between our head and between our ears. And then the third element, so the first was paying attention. The second is on purpose. The third is in the present moment. This is really, really important because we can get stuck on ruminating in the past and trying to figure out, okay, why am I thinking this? And, what happened and that trauma and all of that, which can be helpful for a time, but sometimes that can get us stuck in the past. So we want to come into the present moment. This requires a focus on the here and now. The only place that true happiness, peace, security, safety, confidence, abundance is right here in the present moment. And otherwise, we get stuck in these past regrets, past shame, past guilt, resentment. Or we really get into this place of the hopes and dreams of our future, or the fears of our future, which again, I love having a vision for the future, but being mindful is about the present moment. Because we can only really live in our human bodies right here in the present. Now, our mind, of course, can travel into the past. Our mind, of course, can travel into the future, but our power is right here. There's nothing we can do about the past other than learn from it, gain some wisdom from it, take responsibility for it. And we can't predict the future. It's unknown, which is really a beautiful place to be. It's unknown. So right here is like the sweet spot. Right here is the point of pleasure, power, creation is right here. Choosing to be aware on purpose in the present moment. And then the fourth element of mindfulness is non-judgmentally. And you, recovering perfectionist, I'm going to talk to you. I know this because that is me completely. And it's non-judgmentally. So the more objective the more subjective, the more curious, the more that we can just observe and just sort of radically accept whatever is arising within us in our awareness without judgment, without criticism, without attaching the meaning of, oh, now we're a bad person for, feeling this anger or feeling this resentment or feeling afraid or whatever it might be. The more we can just look at it with tenderness, with empathy, with compassion, with understanding, as though we were saying to ourselves, I see you. I see you. I hear you. I say this so often, as y'all know, like if you've heard me in my guided meditations that I offer on YouTube, or if you've been one of my coaching clients, I use this phrase a lot. I hear you. I see you. We're acknowledging without judgment. We're just bearing witness. We're holding space for what's here. And judgments, the thing about judgment is that it assumes that there's something wrong. There's something broken within us. There's something missing. There's something flawed. And they keep us unconscious because it becomes unsafe to look more deeply when we're judging. Like if we're afraid that every time we become more aware, we're just going to berate ourselves, we're not going to be invited into that with loving. We're going to be like, oh God, no, like who wants to go into that and be like, here you are again, stuck in the same spot. And, you should have done this and you should have done that. And look at, you're still stupid, or all those judgments. That's not going to be a welcomed place, a safe space for us to explore and become curious. Whereas when we become the observer without judgment, it opens the door to just exploring, just becoming curious and see things and connect the dots without criticism. It opens up this revelation, these downloads for ourselves, because we're open. We're in a state of receiving. We're curious. We're wondering. We're being willing to be surprised. And so our energy becomes expansive. It's like we get to stretch versus become contracted. Our heart begins to open rather than close down and shut. So non-judgmentally, that's the fourth element. And then the fifth element is as if your life depended on it. Ooh, this is good. As if your freaking life, ad-libbed, depended on it. Carpe diem, my friends, seize the day. Why waste time ruminating about what we can't change, the past or the future, instead of opening up now to all that life has to offer us, as if our life depended on it, which it does. The quality of our life depends on this, choosing in awareness where we bring our attention, where we focus, energy flows. And so this is the sacred present moment, or the generous present moment, is where life opens up to us. It's where we begin to experience this concept of all things are connected. We begin to notice and see how precious life is. We got to, I feel like, really do this a lot in quarantine and all of that last year, of just slowing down to go take a walk, to be in nature, to be present with children, to be present with all the shit that's been coming up emotionally that we've been burying and stuffing for years or decades. And now we have an opportunity for healing, for transforming, for transmuting. And that's all happening right here, right now, as if our life depended on it. So when you have that belief that the present moment is more important than anything else, when you can tap in, when you can check in, when you can attune to what's here right now, all of a sudden there's a deeper connection with our intuition, with spirit, with source, with God. This is the generous, the sacred present moment. So there you have it. We've got paying attention, number 1, on purpose, number 2, in the present moment, 3, 4, non-judgmentally, as if 5, your life depended upon it. So let's talk about, if I haven't convinced you yet, why this is so valid, so important. Let's talk about the benefits of creating a mindfulness practice. And this month, we're going to get to talk to other individuals who have done this, who have experienced this, and get to really see through their eyes what has happened in their life since beginning a practice of mindfulness. But generically speaking, and this is like studied, there are all kinds of places, mindfulness institutes that really study the health benefits, the mental, the emotional benefits of practicing mindfulness, through, like, for people who are chronically sick or experience PTSD or other traumatic kind of side effects. And number 1, and this is what I love about it, is it helps to regulate your emotions, because you're no longer a victim of your emotions. You learn how to regulate. You learn how to bring down the noise of the response and bring that down enough to where you go, what would love do? Rather than acting on autopilot. What would generosity do in this moment? How do I want to feel in this moment? Do I need to feel into the shame or the grief and just let myself go there so that I can move through it and process through it and get to the other side where there's freedom and relief? It reduces anxiety and fights depression and fights PTSD. So all my sweet anxiety people, all of you who signed up on my website to get the anxiety kit, all of you that have texted me about your anxiety, this is a tool that you can use that helps to reduce anxiety. It snaps you out of that habitual anxious response neurologically and gives you all of a sudden space to choose a new way, to connect dots. It improves academic performance. It fights memory loss. It helps you to notice your destructive habitual patterns and change them. Those things that we do that we go, why am I doing this? It's like when you want to be healthy and every night you stay up until 2 a.m., drinking a bottle of wine, there's a disconnect, right? And so it helps you become aware of what's going on here. It helps you understand yourself and your relationships more deeply, helping you be more empathetic, more generous, less reactive. And it also just helps you enjoy being. It helps you be in the moment, to see the sweetness of the moment and not miss what's happening right here, right now. Like, how many times when we have gone unconscious, have we missed out on what's happening right here? I remember in my past when I was so obsessed with and being afraid of how people thought about my body. Like, I hated my body so much that in any social circumstance, scenario, I would be so hyper-focused inward on my body, in the shame and the judgment and the criticism and the beratement and the bullying, the body bullying, that I missed out on so many things that were powerful, that were precious, that were miraculous, that were magical, because I was so focused on me and my own insecurity, unaware. I just, again, just on autopilot, just thought that was the way that it was. And that I was just going to exist in this forever until I lost weight. I mean, I would just get up and be brought to tears trying to find something to wear. I wouldn't look in the mirror. I wouldn't connect with my husband at the time, sexually, because I was so in a state of my own program, my own habitual limitation, my own hyper focus on the hatred towards myself, that I missed out on life. I missed out on being present for beach vacations. Even if I was there, I wasn't present. My mind was somewhere else. My mind was a million miles away from the sand, from the water, from the sun. And so for me, I feel like I've gained back my life by learning how to be mindful and be in the present moment on purpose, intentionally, non-judgmentally, as if my life depended upon it. That to me is like worth sitting with, that's worth fighting for, that is worth, being uncomfortable for, because I got my life back. So let's just quickly talk about the issue when we're going unconscious, what happens to the brain. And then we'll wrap up here in a minute and I'll give you a little exercise to practice at home. So hang with me. So most of us operate in what I like to call emotional fatigue. We are living out emotional states like exhaustion, anxiety, stress, overwhelm, burnout, lack of fulfillment. Like that, for most people, they live most of their life, like say 80 to 90% in those states. And then they have little moments maybe when they forget who they are, they forget their suffering, maybe in a yoga class for 20 minutes, or maybe over, a couple bottles of wine, and they lose themselves and they have a really fun moment and they laugh and they dance or whatever. And then they come back to their miserable lives. So when we're stuck in that state of being, our brain is in high beta. And high beta, and it's a brain wave, and we have many different brain waves. High beta is a really fast moving brain wave. And you can measure this in the brain. It's smaller, it's faster, and it's associated with states it's a state of mental intellectual activity, and everything is focused outward. Everything feels like a threat. Everything feels like everything feels unsafe or uncertain. And so we're constantly bringing our awareness outside. We're in survival mode. We're feeling very, very separate. Everything is a threat. Every person is a threat. Every other person's belief is a threat. Their political stance is a threat. We're in high levels of anxiety. We're in high levels of stress, unease, fight or flight, that survival lizard, reptilian part of our brain that's super reactive. We're like on alert for attack. We are waiting for the other shoe to drop. It can also look like manic energy, where we're rushing from one thing to the other. We have a hard time, getting our thoughts out. We're just sort of like, Tasmanian devil. We can't calm down. We have difficulty sleeping. It's like we're running hot. Our engine is running hot and we have our foot on the pedal in fifth gear all the way down, and we can't come down off of that fifth gear. We can't downshift. So that's high beta. And that's where most people, and there's low, middle, and high range beta. And most people live in that high beta. Now, all of us go into beta from time to time because we're awake, we're alert. And that's not a bad thing. But when we get to that level of high beta, stress, survival response, that's not a time for creation. That's not a time for thinking about or designing our future. That's not a time for reflection. That's not a time for digestion. That's not a time for rejuvenation, rest, integration. It's a time for survival. And so we can have all kinds of issues with our stomach, with digestion, with emotional imbalance, with physical imbalance. And that's where we are. Now, mindfulness begins to help us downshift that brain wave from high beta to alpha. And then hopefully, as we practice this more and more, into theta, which is where we really get into the seat of the unconscious. So alpha, it's slower. So high beta is like between 13 and 38 hertz. Alpha is like 8 to 12 hertz. So we're really coming down. And what the beautiful part about alpha is, it's like we're idling now. We're waiting to respond rather than just responding. And in alpha, we can begin to close our eyes and we can begin to picture. Our heart begins to open. Our heartbeat begins to slow down. We begin to digest. We begin to rest and repair and heal. And so this is where it's so important, because if we're going to create a life that we love, we can't do that in our beta, high beta brainwaves. It's contradictory physiologically, neurologically, to be able to do that. So we really do have to regulate our brainwaves and come down into that alpha and eventually theta, which is where we're in that place of real deep relaxation and sleep. We've got to be able to downshift and down regulate our emotional states. And mindfulness is the way to do that. Becoming aware. So let me just share with you how to do that, okay? And we're gonna revisit this again and again this month through different conversations. So you may want to start this and re-listen to it again, but just know that we'll keep coming back to these concepts so that you really get it throughout the month. But this is a practice called RAIN, an acronym, RAIN, and it's from a beautiful teacher of mine, Tara Brock. She has a lovely podcast. Check it out. And it's recognize, the A is allow, the I is investigate, and the N is nurture, RAIN. Recognize, allow, investigate, and nurture. So recognize, and this is something you do, like literally sit down in a chair, on the floor, on a cushion, closing your eyes. And you can just write this out on your paper. So as you practice it, you can eventually kind of just know how to do it with your eyes closed. But the first is recognize. So we close our eyes, we connect to our heart. Maybe we take a few deep breaths, settle ourselves, find our center. And if you're in the Fully Alive Circle membership, you have a beautiful meditation this month that helps you to do this. So make sure to use that. But you ask yourself, what am I feeling? What's asking for my highest attention? You name it. You become aware of this present moment, of what's happening inside of your body. Where do you feel it? Like, where do you feel that emotion in your body, in your stomach, in your throat, in your heart? What does it feel like? Tight, tingling, heavy, cloudy, nausea. So you check in. How am I feeling? What's the name of that feeling? Where do I feel it in the body? What's the sensation? So we're recognizing, again, we're observing, we're getting curious about what's already happening right here, right now in the present moment. So that's the first, recognize. Second is to allow. This is where that non-judgmental piece is. We sit with our emotions. It's like we're going to tea with the present moment. We're opening up to it. We sit with it. We don't rush it. We allow ourselves to experience it. We don't try to fix or manage or control or deny. We just simply, like a flower that's just opening up and softening those petals out, we soften, we open up to it, let it be, and just create space to feel what we need to feel without rushing it. It might feel uncomfortable. It might be challenging. You know, when I started doing this at the first, I was like, I'm going to lose my mind. I'm going to go crazy if I actually feel, what I feel inside. It was, took some honesty, some radical bravery to be honest with how I was feeling and just sit in it. But through sitting with it, we take it from the unconscious to the conscious, and then we can release it. So we have to allow it. And then investigate is the I. So this is where once we sort of really sat with it, and this could be 10 minutes longer, then we can deepen our awareness. Notice in ourselves, investigate with curiosity, again, non-judgmentally, what am I longing for? Like, what is here to teach me? What's the message? What am I supposed to learn from this? Where is this experience trying to lead me? Where have I had a limiting view of my potential, a limiting belief, a limiting view of who I am, of what's possible? Where am I feeling this in the body? What's the connection, the mind-body connection here? And then lastly, the in, so once we've investigated, we're trying to connect the dots there, we can nurture. We can bring in loving, we can bring in empathy, we can bring in tenderness, and ask ourselves, what do I need? What do I need? In this moment, what do I need? And I love, love, love this question. It's a question I ask myself every day. As I connect to my heart, allow myself to feel it, investigate it, then I can bring in this part of integration. What is it that I need? This is where our self-care comes in. This is where our community comes in. This is where our prayer comes in. This is where our relationship with the divine comes in. What do I need? What support do I need? What do I need to cultivate? What do I need to release? What do I need to sit with? What do I need? And really honor the answer that our own soul and spirit is speaking to us. So recognize, allow, investigate, and nurture. What would love do? What's the kindest thing that I can do right now? So you can choose this mindfulness practice with anything. You can bring awareness to anything. And even in your mundane life of eating, of washing dishes, of driving your car, you can bring mindfulness to scrolling through Facebook, which most of us are in a trance and we're not even connected to our conscious mind. We're just so unconscious and in a suggestible state that we take anything in as truth and we're programming ourselves. It's like, whoa, let's be mindful about our social media consumption. You can be mindful about brushing your teeth, showering, waiting in line, traffic, noticing your feeling, noticing your body sensations, noticing your thoughts in any given moment. Noticing the nuances of the present moment. Using all of your senses to really feel into the now, even when you're multitasking, and really experiencing the present moment. So as we explore this month, I just want you to now make a commitment to increase your mindfulness this month, to increase that awareness, to bring some of that unconscious to the conscious, to begin to notice when you go on autopilot. And bring your attention back to the present moment. Oop, I just checked out there. Oop, I went unconscious there. Oop, I went on autopilot there. And bring in some awareness. So I hope that this was helpful and foundational for you today. Like I said, this is one of my favorite things to talk about and teach about. So it's going to be a great month. And I just encourage you to share this with anyone who is on this journey. Like I feel like the more of us that are doing this collective work, it's just so much easier to do it in community. So share this with your friends or your family if they're open to it, your girlfriends. Have a conversation about it. This is how we begin to change, when we have conversations with the people around us. And if you're in the circle, we're going to have lots of chances to have those conversations together as a community. So I'm excited about that and seeing you guys there in our live Q&A and through our guided meditations, our live guided meditations together, in our sister support group. Oh my gosh, so exciting. So I'll see y'all in there. But until next week, remember that the purpose of life is to be grateful, to be great, and to be full. I'll see y'all next week. Bye. Hey, y'all. Thanks so much for listening to today's episode. I hope you got some amazing nuggets to take home and start implementing into your life. And if you're looking for the show notes and links, head on over to maryhyatt.com/show. And if you loved it, why not bring your girlfriends along this journey of becoming fully alive with you? Just give a quick share of this episode to your social channels and enjoy those debriefing convos with your besties. Thanks again, and I can't wait to connect with you next week.